Yes, well, thank you for coming for the May meeting. I know we have Commissioner Layden is online and gonna kind of kick us off today. So, Commissioner Layden.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you everybody for showing up this morning. Certainly appreciate it. On my way here shortly to Berthoud for a biochar tour. As you might know, we also have a Douglas County Wildfire Action Collaborative, and we have some really exciting projects happening in that space. But I'm going to be listening in and certainly providing a couple of comments, including an update on the migrant issue, which I know is top of mind for so many. But I did want to share, first and foremost, that we have a fun summer ahead of us. I think part of what we would like to do as a county is provide more opportunities for cross-department and cross-initiative opportunities and projects. And there are certainly some synergies between the Wildfire Action Collaborative and the Homeless Initiative, our Healthy Families Initiative, and what we're doing in this space. Our Opioid Council, District 12, which is Douglas County, is of course doing a lot in a tangential way associated with the Homeless Initiative. So more to come, but we're looking for opportunities to thread that needle, avoid duplication, and really advance projects that make sense. So I'm excited to get your input there. And I would just add that as we go into the warmer months, I know a big and exciting push for all of us is really to just be prepared. We know what happens for those that are often unhoused or facing challenges as the summer months heat up. So just being prepared from a heart team perspective and from a homeless initiative outlook is going to be really important. So thank you. And thank you for being here.
Okay, well then we will move, thank you, Commissioner, for that. We will move into the migrant crisis. We wanted to have an update kind of discussion, make sure that everybody is up to speed on actions that are happening around this topic. I know it's of importance to everyone right now and is kind of a quick moving target. I know Commissioner Layden, did you had some things to update us on this topic?
I do. It's the front page of the Gazette today. You know, Douglas County was invited to participate with City and County of Denver and a law professor from University of Colorado, an individual named DJ from Common Sense Institute, and Mayor Mike Kaufman from Aurora on a panel just this week having a conversation regionally around the migrant crisis. You know, I'm always looking for opportunities for collaboration and zones of possible agreement that, you know, that ZOPA for those that have studied negotiation. And while we have philosophical differences, there are some commonalities where I really think there are ways in which we can advance Colorado in a way that makes sense. The unfortunate statistics are very stark. We know that north of 40,000 Venezuelan migrants have come to the Denver area, primarily through Texas by bus. That cost to City and County of Denver originally was about $180 million. Much of that has been kind of retooled and revamped, talking about an additional 90 this year, which would really be primarily focused towards some projects and plans that they have in place. The comment and thread that I heard from the panel was Denver is a welcoming city. And I think in Douglas County, I'm really interested to hear all of your perspectives on this, because it's not the homeless initiative, but it's related when you're dealing with people who are potentially going to be unhoused. My response to that comment is it's kind of like a restaurant saying, hey, welcome, but then we have no seats, no food in the pantry. And by the way, you're probably going to freeze once you get here. That's probably not the most compassionate response. So the concern is just looking at the numbers, making sure that we're not cutting services as a region to those that, you know, need our help. And we know in Denver, we saw a cut to law enforcement, to recreational services for youth, planting, parks, DMV. So those are cuts that I'm interested in making. I don't believe my board in Douglas County is interested in making cuts to our citizens. So we're going to try to prioritize the rights of legal citizens first while trying to remain compassionate. And, you know, I did release a video the other day. I have a Venezuelan migrant who I know I've shared with you before, who lives in my district. And his name is Jaiber. It's Jheiber. And as I've shared in the past, you know, he came here from Venezuela after 2 uncles were killed. And his mom was almost abducted twice. And fast forward to today, and he is now legally working as an Uber driver. So he's gainfully employed, and we in Douglas County support legal immigration, but always want to have a watchful eye toward the potential cost when we have a big welcome sign on the state of Colorado and say, hey, we're a sanctuary, but then we don't have the resources to serve folks. I don't know if Commissioner Thomas is in the room, but we have taken a number of actions, both from a public health department standpoint and from a county standpoint, that I'm happy to toss to her to update folks on, or Jeff if he's in the room.
Commissioner Thomas is not in the room, so if you wanted to do some of those updates, I know Jeff Garcia is in the room and was offered to talk about the new lawsuit that was introduced.
Yeah, well, I'll take my attorney hat off and make sure that Jeff has the opportunity to do that. You know, obviously a lawsuit against the state to allow us to enforce federal immigration law. You know, we did proclaim that we're not a sanctuary county in Douglas County, which I think is the appropriate first step for all of the jurisdictions in the region, to be honest about that, and that we don't have the resources. And then, of course, we also, you know, passed this busing ordinance that would prohibit unplanned drop-offs in Douglas County by buses. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff for a few more of the specifics and details. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Commissioner. I just wanted to give a quick update. You may have seen in the paper this week that a number of other counties have joined us in our lawsuit against the state. We've had Mesa, Garfield County, our neighbor Elbert, and Rio Blanco all join us, and we had previously had El Paso County in it. The news on this is a little complicated because it's not an easy issue, as I'm sure we all understand. There was some criticism in the news that we are somehow trying to collude with the federal government. That's not at all what's going on. The laws prevent us from sharing information about individuals who are arrested and held in the county. So someone who has already committed a crime and is wanted by the federal government, we are not allowed to share that information that we have them in custody. So this is someone who's already been convicted and held for a crime, and the federal government wants them. These 2 laws prevent us from sharing that information or cooperating in any way with the federal government to make sure that this criminal is handed over for a civil warrant. So about 25% of the population in Colorado right now is represented in this case. We know that other counties would like to be in this case. So we've been reached out by a great number. The AG's office has asked for a 35-day extension. And so in that period of time, if there are other counties, municipalities, local governments who want to join us, we would welcome them to do so. With that regard, we have also been reached out by our local municipalities to help them incorporate the busing ordinance, so that the busing ordinance that right now is only in effect in unincorporated Douglas County can be in effect or used in the municipality. So we'll see that. Maybe by the next meeting, we'll have updated information about that as well. But more than enforcing that, we just want to make sure that there's a clear understanding that you cannot unload buses that are meant to arrive at another destination in Douglas County. So my office and the Board of Commissioners, County Commissioners, have sent letters to the trade organizations for personal busing, as well as the largest busing organizations that are being used to bus individuals into Colorado, so that before they even hire a bus or get on it, they know that they're not supposed to come into Douglas and drop people off. So that's my update. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer.
Commissioner Layden, anything to add related to that?
No, I think that was a great summary, but I am really most interested in questions from the room, comments, thoughts. Where are we getting it right? Where are we getting it wrong? Where can we fine tune? What are things we haven't considered?
Is there anyone who would like to comment on that or has any input related to that?
That means we're doing everything right.
I don't see anything in the room, Commissioner, or online.
Okay, well, as always, it's such an honor to serve in Douglas County with great partners like all of you. We tend to find a lot of like-minded, folks in our community that are willing to lead and work hard. So thank you for your input and support.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I am going to move us on to our next topic. I just want to give a little bit of background about this topic. So we're next going to talk about the Aurora Regional Navigation Campus. And when the homeless initiative started more than 2 years ago now, I think one of the largest concerns that a lot of people on both the executive committee and the work group voiced was that we really are looking at a lack of resources that are available in Douglas County to be able to support those who are unhoused in our community. And I think that as a community that really hadn't had as much experience, and our volume of homeless people who were experiencing homelessness was really pretty low for quite a long time. We didn't really have those resources set up. We didn't really have a lot of those tools in our tool chest. We recognized that, I think, as a committee very early on. You always find your gaps very quickly, right? So that is something that I think we have been working very hard to see what we can do to fill those gaps. And, we've talked with this group about the fact that there really is a continuum of services that needs to be provided. And understanding that, one of those first things is, what do we do in an emergency situation when people need shelter? They need a day shelter to go to. They need emergency shelter for, overnight. And really, we knew that not having a physical location for a shelter in Douglas County was a big deterrent, really, and we were very dependent upon the fact that we had, hotel vouchers to utilize, which also comes with a lot of, kind of extenuating circumstances and additional issues that come with that. But I think understanding that those hotel vouchers were there, we kind of worked with our partners in the hospitality range, in the faith-based, in the nonprofit areas to help us kind of strengthen that as a Band-Aid, essentially. A couple of projects that we have talked about quite a bit in this homeless initiative are really starting to come to fruition. And the Aurora Regional Navigation Campus is one of those. So the commissioners approved late last month an IGA with the city of Aurora to provide $1,125,000 in funding for the acquisition and the renovation. So basically the facility costs to be able to build the Aurora Regional Navigation Campus. And obviously we're a very small portion of that, but so extremely happy to be a partner in that, because what that means for us is that, our, say, HEART team or other partners, when they're out there and encountering somebody who is in a unsheltered situation and does need assistance, has an option, has a place to send them to, that, as you will hear from Emma, who has done a tremendous amount of work in putting this campus together. I mean, and I really can't emphasize that enough, an impressive amount of work. There will be a place that they can go where they get those supportive on-site services, where they have the shelter that they need. And like we saw with the Springs Rescue Mission model, a way to kind of work through that process and hopefully get to a position where they're much more self-sustainable, self-sufficient. So that's really what we're hoping for in a lot of cases, that they have those supports that can help them get through that. So I'm very happy to introduce Emma Knight, who is the Homelessness Division Manager for the City of Aurora, to come and talk a little bit more about the Regional Navigation Campus.
Great. Hey, all. My name's Emma Knight, Manager of Homeless Programs for the City of Aurora. It's been really great working with Jen and team to get this process going and be really collaborating with Douglas County. It's been a real pleasure seeing not only Douglas County, but our other counties in Aurora also stepping up and saying, yeah, we want to be a part of this and we want to solve this problem together. And it's not just one of our problems, it's all of our problems. So I'm just going to go through a brief presentation on what we're planning with the Navigation Campus and answer some questions if you all have them afterwards. So let's go. That's a great picture of the Crown Plaza, which is what we're purchasing. Makes it look really pretty. And it's in a really good location, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but just wanted to highlight how pretty that picture is. All right, so the City of Aurora's goal is to really engage in homelessness prevention, but to ensure that when it does happen, that we're making sure it's brief, rare, and non-reoccurring. Prevention is the key, and I see you all are talking about some prevention later in this meeting, and that really is a huge part of dealing with homelessness, is trying to stop it before it happens. So that's really big, but what we're going to be talking about more is the when it does occur and how we're working with that. So in October of 2022, the Aurora City Council passed a resolution just directing staff to work on a solution to our homelessness problem and figure out what we're going to do. And our solution was creating a navigation campus. So this navigation campus will serve individuals experiencing homelessness or housing instability, offering round-the-clock services, and we're going to have a really seasoned shelter provider and a lot of other service providers on site. And I mentioned folks who are experiencing housing instability in there as well, because again, prevention is really important. So we're going to make sure that this space is available for folks who are needing assistance before they fall into that homelessness state. So just some of our anticipated services, and this is just a few. We might have a lot more than this, but just some that we want to highlight and that we've really said this is what we want to focus on. Employment services, workforce development, transitional housing, which will be more of like a non-congregate sheltering option, addictions counseling, mental health services, really robust case management is super important, housing navigation, day shelter, navigation services, emergency shelter. We're going to have a medical clinic. We've already had people reach out to us wanting to help with dental care and medical respite beds. We've been talking to the CU hospital, and they're wanting to be involved in this as well. Because our current services are actually on the Fitzsimmons campus in Aurora. So if we move off of that, they still want to be involved and help solve our homelessness problem. So Jen mentioned earlier that we're kind of modeling this close to what the Colorado Springs Rescue Mission is. And if you've been there, they have kind of a tier system. They have a few different options. So we're focusing on something similar to that. So our step one is just that low barrier emergency shelter. And if you aren't super familiar with homelessness terms, low barrier and shelter terms just means that we are literally trying to remove any barriers that are in the way of someone accessing shelter, because we want people to come in off of the streets, access shelter, have a safe place to stay, and get access to services, and hopefully move on from that and move into housing eventually. So if there's a barrier in the way, folks aren't going to come in and they're not going to get those services they need. So this first step is for anyone. There will be rules, but it's not going to be like anything that's going to be prohibitive of folks coming in. It would be more like your typical rules of like, you can't use substances on site, no violence, you can't have weapons, things like that. But other than that, we're really going to make sure folks are just coming in and getting access to that shelter. That being said, we'll have folks sign some kind of like participant agreement when they come in so that they understand the rules that they're coming in and accessing. So then step 2 is that engage short-term shelter. So that's going to be kind of a step up from that first barrier or that first low barrier shelter. It's going to still be congregate sheltering, meaning that folks are in the same room, like larger space together. They don't get their own private room or anything like that. But while the first step would be more like cots next to each other, step 2 would be more of, you get slightly more privacy. It might be little like pods kind of things, or what we have at the Ready to Work shelter in Aurora. They have kind of little dorm rooms that are set up that folks share, and they have short walls that give you a little bit of privacy, but you're still in the same room as other people. So that's what we mean by it's going to be a little more a step up but have some more privacy. And for folks to enter into that step, they're going to have to be engaged in some kind of services. They'll have to be working with a case manager. They'll have to be working towards something to be in that step. And then step 3 is our transitional housing for workforce and others. So this is folks who have gotten through those first 2 steps or have maybe gotten a referral from another agency that does something similar. Maybe they were already in a program that did something similar to step 2, and then they get referred into here. And this is where they're very actively working with case managers towards housing, and that is their whole goal. And transitional housing is going to be in the hotel rooms we have on site. So that hotel block, we have 255 rooms in this space, and that's going to only be for folks who have worked their way through that program. And I have the word others on there because we recognize that not everyone can physically work. So that will be for folks who have gotten through the other steps. They have a clear sign or a clear direction towards housing, and maybe they just need a little bit more time and a little bit more very direct case management working with them. So that's what I mean by that. And then really the outcome for all of these, regardless of what step you're in, we're going to try to get folks into housing, because the solution for folks who are experiencing homelessness is getting them into housing. So regardless of what step you're in, you could be identified for like a voucher, or maybe you already were working when you came into step 1, and all you need is help with a deposit or something like that. So each step we're working towards housing. That is the ultimate goal. But we think these steps will really help folks to just take responsibility and work at the pace that they're ready to. We can't force someone to be ready to move on to step 3, but when they are, it's going to be there for them. So we have not shared who our operator is yet. We issued an RFP last year, I think it was back in September maybe, for our operator, and we got 3 applicants. And what we were really looking for was someone who has experience managing shelters, managing transitional housing, and someone who has really good financial sustainability and can help us with the financial side of this as well. So we went through those 3 applicants with a diverse panel representing the folks who have agreed to be part of the funding of this site, which includes Arapahoe County, Adams County. We had Jen on here with this panel. I was on this, and then we had someone from Metro Denver Homeless Initiative as well. So we had a diverse panel of folks who are really experts in the field, looking at our operator to decide who we were going to have come on and do this for us, because this is a huge project and the operator can make or break it. So right now we're in the middle of finalizing our lease agreement and operator agreement. I think we'll have that done probably early June, if not sooner. We're in the negotiations with them right now. Once we have finished that and finalized that, we'll be able to announce who it is, and we're really excited for when we're able to do that, because I think a lot of folks will be happy with who we have selected. So just want to talk briefly about some good neighbor practices that we're going to have for the campus and for the surrounding area and for all of Aurora and for anyone else who is sending folks over or is nearby to this space. So we're going to have fencing around the entire campus, and I'm going to have, I think my next slide is actually an overview of the campus itself and what it looks like, so you'll get to see that in a little bit. But we'll have fencing around the entire campus so that we'll have positive control of both exits and entry points. We're going to know who's on campus at all times. That's really important for the safety of everyone inside and outside the campus. And that's also going to make it so that we're not just letting folks out into the community at all hours of the day, things like that. That will also go along with it being a 24/7 operation. So folks are free to come and go as they please, but because we'll be open 24/7, folks won't need to leave. Right, a lot of shelters you'll see, more traditional shelters will only be a night shelter, so then they kick people out during the day, and then maybe there's not a day shelter for them to stay at, or they're just a day shelter and they don't have, and folks have to wait a couple hours to get into the night shelter. So then you see an influx of a lot of people out in the streets for a few hours or just during the day. We're not going to do that. That 24/7 shelter is really going to help with that. And as you'll see in a little bit, it's a very large site, so there's lots of space for folks to be at and be on, and not feel like they're like claustrophobic or needing to stay in one tiny room. So we're also going to have frequent patrols from the Aurora Police Department, and we're actively working with the Denver Police Department because this site is directly across the street from Denver. So we will need to be working together closely to make sure that we're having really robust patrols and response to anything that happens on site or in the neighborhood. And then we've put it actually into our agreement with our operator that they'll be doing regular cleanups of the neighborhood. Something we've heard a lot from neighbors is that they're concerned that a lot more trash will show up from folks. And I think that comes from folks seeing encampments where folks don't have anywhere to throw things away. But folks around our campus, they'll have places to get rid of trash and debris. So I don't think that will be as big of a concern as they think it will be, but we'll also have that regular neighborhood cleanup in order to mitigate anything that does happen like that. And finally, we're going to have a good neighbor agreement, and that's going to be for anyone who has concerns. They will know who to call. We'll have it really clearly written out what to do in different situations and who you need to talk to and how soon you can expect to hear back from either the operator or the city or anyone else involved in this operation. And actually, I missed it on there, the transportation provided to and from campus. There is actually an RTD bus stop directly outside of this location, which is really great. That was one thing we were looking for, was a site that has good transportation. But in addition to that, we'll also be providing some form of transportation. Most likely we'll have a bus or two that will go to specific locations around that area for folks to be picked up and dropped off for other things. And I was wrong, my next slide was not an overview. I apologize. But we are working with our architects, HDR. We've been working with them for over 2 years on some kind of design, and when we switched from what we were originally planning was doing new construction, we switched to this acquisition because we knew this would be a lot faster than new construction. So that's why we switched. The space also has way more space than we ever could have done with the amount of money if we were doing new construction. So this will give us a lot of space to scale up if needed, or pivot if we're seeing different needs at any time. So I think this is really a step up and will be even more helpful than if we had been able to design something ourselves and build it. There we go. So that is our preliminary site design. Does it have a laser on it? There we go. All right. I don't know if you can see that laser because it's green. I was expecting it to be red. But so this is just our preliminary site design. This could absolutely change depending on need and depending on what we see once we start working with our operator and our architects a little bit more. But I want to just note this dotted line all the way around. That's the fencing we're talking about. So it's going to be, the whole site will be fenced off, not just the building. I think that's going to be really helpful. And again, that positive control is and exits and entries. We only have 3 exits and entries, and those will be monitored very closely. And then this number 11, that's the hotel block. So that's that 255 rooms I was talking about. And that's going to be only for transitional housing. And again, only for those folks who have worked through the other two parts of the 2 steps. And something I didn't mention earlier is the reason we bought this location to begin with, other than site location, size, all of that, it's also a convention center. If this had just been a hotel, we wouldn't even have considered it because it wouldn't have been able to have all of our needs met. But because this huge section here, like over half the hotel is a convention center, which means we can do so much with that. We can have our overnight congregate shelter over here. We can have that step 2 engaged shelter over here as well, because this area is enormous. It's I think it was like 40,000 square feet of space just in this area here. And then there are an additional 20 ballrooms on site, which we can use as needed. So that could be overflow sheltering. It can be that medical clinic we were talking about. We can break up a ballroom into case management offices. Anything we need, we're going to be able to do on this site because of the size and what's already exists on site. So this number 12 is actually going to be the navigation center area, and that's what we're referring to as like our day center space. And anyone accessing overnight shelter is going to be able to access that, but we're also going to have that space open to the general community. We're trying to make sure that this space is also helpful to the community and is providing services to the community as well, not just those experiencing homelessness. So what I'm mostly talking about with that is the medical clinic and most likely dental services, and being able to provide that to the community as well. And one more thing I want to highlight, excuse me, actually I'll highlight 2 more things. This space has 2 industrial kitchens in it, which means we're going to be able to have really robust workforce development working in those kitchens, similar to the Colorado Springs model where they're doing job training, on-site job training, and they're also providing meals to everyone staying. So I think that's going to be a really great way for folks to get that on-site job training, and it will be helpful for everyone, and also help keep the cost of just services down a little bit if we have folks on site providing some of those services. And the last thing I want to highlight is number 5. One barrier we see a lot with folks experiencing homelessness is they have pets, and almost no shelters allow folks to come in with their pets. And people will not come into a shelter if their pets are not allowed to come in with them. I'm not going to go in somewhere where I can't bring my dog if I have nowhere else to stay. So I'm not going to expect that of someone else either. So number 5, we're planning on building some kind of kennel there, on-site kennel for folks, and that would only be for folks whose pets are not service animals. If they're service animals, they would be allowed indoors with the folks overnight. But that was one barrier we were really trying to get rid of, and that's our solution is having that kennel block. And we'll have some other space on site to scale up as needed. We might be able to move some pallet shelters over here and just have even another step for folks coming directly from the streets. The pallet shelter is a little bit easier for folks to move into. It doesn't feel quite as scary as if you've lived on the streets for 30 years and then moving directly into a space with 200 other people directly next to you, having some space that still feels kind of smaller, more similar to like a tent, is an easier transition for folks. And we've seen that be really successful with our pallet shelters in Aurora. And I'm gonna move on from this. So just want to put out a call if you know anyone, or if you're interested in being more involved in this process, or if you have any service providers that really want to be working out of here. Our operator's going to be having a lot of MOUs and agreements with different service providers to be able to provide all those services on campus. Our operator, while they're really good at what they do, can't do everything. They're not going to be able to do medical stuff. They're not going to be the experts on mental health. So they're going to be bringing other experts in to do those things. So if you do want to get involved or volunteer or donate, you can actually go to our Engage Aurora site, which is where we have our Navigation Campus website, and you can just let us know what you're interested in, and once we're more ready to reach out and be getting volunteers in or getting those MOUs in place, and then we'll have your information and we'll be ready. And even easier to see is this giant QR code. That is for our Engage Aurora site as well. And even if you're not interested in volunteering and you just want to keep up to date, I would suggest just subscribing to this page so that you can see our updates. We'll be posting photos on there. We get lots of questions in on that site, and I answer them personally. And they're posted on that website for folks to see. And that's the end of my presentation. So I'm going to open it up for questions now, if that's okay, Jen.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yes. Do we have any questions for Emma? Chief? Oh, Mayor?
Town of Castle Rock Mayor Jason Gray. I got a question. You may have said it, but maybe I just missed it. Is this modeled after something else in the country, or something else we've seen, or is it a brand new concept?
So it is similar to the Colorado Springs rescue mission. Our council really liked that model, so that's what they wanted to model it after. But we also saw several other locations around the country that we're modeling after as well. We took what we thought were all the best parts of different models, and we're kind of putting them together. So we visited Houston and saw the shelter they're working on. We also learned from them in what they're doing to house people quickly, which we can put into the site as well. We visited San Antonio and their very large site that they have for folks experiencing homelessness, which is more of a campus model similar to this. And maybe those were the only three. Oh, I think we also, I did not get to go to this one, unfortunately, visited Las Vegas. They have a really interesting model as well, which is similar to a campus model, but a lot of their stuff is outdoors. So just learning what they do and how you can use your general surrounding to make things work better and not necessarily fight what people want. And if people want to be outdoors, then you offer some ways for folks to do that while also having positive control over it. So that was a long answer in saying yes.
No, I appreciate it. It kind of reminds me of the Colorado Springs, but bigger and better. Mm-hmm. But it looks fantastic. Thank you for the response.
Yeah, thanks.
And online.
Was there a question online?
Yes, Bob Laguerre. Emma, can you talk a little bit about, just in general terms, about the funding for the program? And I understand that the goal is to have a nonprofit or some entity come in and fund the entire operations. But by the very nature of what this navigation center does, most of the clients have no money. And Medicare or other government programs that would normally fund are very low. So I guess my question is, will Aurora at some level continue funding these services to assist the operator coming on board? And so anything you can talk about publicly along those lines would be appreciated.
Sure, thanks for that question, Bob. first, let me talk about how we're funding the actual acquisition. So Douglas County, as you heard earlier, is providing that $1.125 million. Arapahoe County is providing $5 million of their ARPA dollars. Adams County is also providing $5 million in ARPA, as well as we applied with them for an additional $3-ish million of their of some of their HUD dollars, and we're just waiting to get confirmation on that one. And then Aurora itself is also putting in some ARPA funds and some of our own home HUD funds as well. So we have a lot of different funds, and this facility itself costs $26.5 million to purchase, and we have just under $40 million that we have to spend and to use on renovations. So between those different sources, none of these are coming from local tax dollars, which we're really happy about. We're able to just use all of this one-time funding that's coming from the federal government to help solve this issue. And I forgot to mention our biggest source, DOLA from the state of Colorado. We applied for their House Bill 1378, which was to create a regional navigation campus in the Denver metro region. And they awarded us $15 million for that, or just over $15 million. And we were not the only ones who received funding from that. We also know that, was it Boulder, Denver, Lakewood, and Tri-Cities all also received funding and are creating navigation campuses as well. So we're not the only ones doing this. This is really, again, a regional approach. Everyone's working on this together so that folks don't have to travel too far to get to a campus. They don't have to leave their community necessarily to get to a campus and receive services. So that's on the acquisition. So, and Bob, you asked about just the ongoing funding and how we're going to be doing that. So right now, Aurora puts just around $2 million into our homeless services every year. And we're just planning on reallocating that. So we're not going to be planning on putting new funding towards this. And this mostly comes from our marijuana tax revenue. We put 2% of our marijuana tax revenue towards homelessness, and we're going to be putting that towards this navigation campus. We also get some other additional HUD funds that we might be able to put towards this. While also recognizing that this site is only for single adults. We're not going to be having families at this site. So because of that, we'll have to hold back a little bit of the funds, and most of that will probably be those HUD funds I mentioned. And those will go to organizations that work with families instead, or with domestic violence survivors, which we also won't have on site because they have very different needs. So yes, we will be funding some of this ongoing, but we're looking at this being around $10 million annually to run a facility this size. So we're just doing a portion of that through Aurora, and the rest of that we're expecting to come from our operator, from fundraising, from billing Medicaid, from applying for other grants. So there's going to be a lot coming from that. We're also really trying to look for private funders from foundations, big businesses in the area to help fund this. We have a lot of big businesses in Aurora that could help with this. So we're trying to really pull all sources to help handle this and fund this ongoing. I hope that answered your question, Bob.
Yes, thank you.
Emma, we do have one other question online. They asked when your anticipating open date is.
Sure. So we're actually closing on the property at the end of this month, and which means we don't have the keys yet, so we haven't been able to start doing any renovations. So the absolute earliest we could get in and start using the property would probably be fall, maybe earliest this fall sometime, and that would just be part of it. We're looking at a phased approach to opening, knowing that we need to have some services up and running as soon as possible. So we would have part of it up and running maybe this fall, and then the rest probably fully functioning by late 2025 is what we're looking at.
Okay, great, thank you. And I know we have some other questions. Chief Duffy, and then we'll go to Mike.
Yeah, Chief Duffy, Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Emma, thanks for your presentation on this. I'm very excited to hear about this project. And the first thing I want to share with you is I'm very excited that you guys are modeling a lot of this after the Colorado Springs Rescue Mission. A lot of us in this room have been down there several times. They have a very great operation down there. It's something that when we saw, we were hoping we could model something like that. So kudos to you guys for looking at that. The questions I have is, in our dealings with a lot of the homeless that we're coming in contact, shelters are a hit and miss. And also a lot of the homeless that we're dealing with in here in Douglas County, when our navigators are trying to get them into shelters, they want nothing to do with shelters, and it's because of safety and security. So could you kind of address real quick on what you guys are going to do to provide safe and secure environments for the residents there? Because what precludes a lot of the homeless from going to a shelter is, I just go to the shelter and all I do is get beat up and they steal all my stuff. So that's not happening down in Colorado Springs. What are you guys going to do to kind of make sure that we can kind of duplicate that?
Yeah, great question. So safety for the campus, for folks staying there. And I agree, I hear that a lot as well from folks experiencing homelessness, that they don't want to go to shelter because they don't feel safe. So we are really trying to make sure that's not a barrier for folks. So our operator, we already know, is planning on hiring in-house security, not going through an outside entity. And they learned that from Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs does that at their facility. So having those folks part of the staff will also mean that they know the folks better who are staying there, and they're really bought into the model that we're doing as well, having them on staff and not having just like a random assortment of people who come through some outside agency who don't know folks and haven't been there long enough. So I think that will really help. Also, having really well-trained staff makes a huge difference. You can have staff on site, but if they're not trained and if they're not really, again, bought into what's happening and all of that, then they're not going to be able to stop things before they happen. So I think it's going to be a combination of very well-trained staff and those on-site security, as well as just making sure that the model is set up in a way that's going to be conducive for folks not being crammed into a space that's making them cranky together, or we're going to have mental health providers on site who are also helping with that, because we know a high population of people experiencing homelessness are struggling with mental health needs. So I guess my answer is a combination of a lot of things. And as well, I mentioned earlier, we'll have PD, Aurora Police Department on who's going to be doing regular patrols. I know our operator really wants a very good relationship with our police department as well. And I think, again, the combination of all of that should help mitigate that.
Well, that kind of segues into my next question. Is it's going to be critical for the Aurora Police Department and Denver Police to be partners in this. That's what's unique about Colorado Springs. The Colorado Springs Police Department is heavily involved with the campus down there in a partnership relationship. They know who's there. They work with the staff on a daily basis. Can you share, or do you have anyone from the Aurora Police Department right now that is working with you guys on a day-to-day basis? That's your point of contact?
We've been working with our chief, Heather Morris, on this. Okay. We haven't pulled them in to it fully yet, because we're still in the process of just getting things up and running, and we don't even have our operator on yet. I think once we have our operator on, that's when we will fully pull them in and say, this does need to be a collaboration and we do need to work closely. That being said, we've also already met with the Denver police officers in that area, and we've also met with the Denver council member over there, Stacy Gilmore, who really wants to work with us as well. And she's the one who brought their police officers over. I met them personally. They're really excited to work with us, and we're excited to work with them.
So 2 more quick questions, and then it goes into a funding. So are you guys going to offer detox or withdrawal services in the facility? And are you also going to have MAT services in the facility?
Detox services, most likely not. And that's only because we will have another facility in Aurora that's already doing that and will specialize in that. And that's going to be Aurora Mental Health and Recovery. They are working on building a new campus in South Aurora. or southish Aurora. And that's going to be a walk-in facility for mental health services and also some detox, as well as the state is building and working on the Ridgeview campus that's just east of Aurora. So there's going to be some other spaces that will be more focused on that we'll be partnering with and working with for folks in that who need that kind of service. And I'm sorry, what was your other question?
MAPS or medication treatment programs, assisted treatment programs.
That I'm not sure on yet. That would be, again, a question with our operator, but most likely we'll have something along those lines on site.
Okay, and then this goes to my last piece.
Okay.
Then I'm done.
All right.
Have you had any conversations with any of the opioid abatement councils with, I sit on the Region 12 Opioid Abatement Council for Douglas County. Commissioner Layden's our chairman. Aurora has theirs. Rapo has theirs. There's a lot of funding that we're looking at that I see where this facility can meet many of our needs to where there, and I would very much like to invite you and have talked to the commissioner to see if maybe you can come in and talk to our council as well to see how we can figure into being a partner with you.
Absolutely. I've sat in on 1 or 2 meetings for the Aurora version of that. Our council member, Francois Bergen, is the one heading those up, and we've had many conversations as well about how we can use these funds. I'm actually going to be giving a presentation in June to our council for some recommendations on how we could be using those funds for homelessness and probably specifically for the navigation campus. And one thing that's unique about those funds that we're trying to figure out how we can make it work is that because they're not ongoing the same amount and the money will fluctuate year to year, it's harder to use for staffing. So it needs to be more like one-time costs or things that are not going to cost an arm and a leg like staffing. So we're trying to figure out exactly what that looks like. But I would be happy to come and speak with that group and most likely bring our council member Bergen as well. I'm sure she would want to be on that as well.
I'm not trying to interrupt you, Chief, because I think this line of questioning is very important, and I'm also very interested in bringing you in to talk about that with that group. But we have a short period of time that Commissioner Layden is still with us, so I know he has a question and some comments he wanted to add. Commissioner Layden? Well,
yeah, Jen, thank you for that, and I have zero intent to interrupt Chief Duffy on any level, and I really appreciate, every single question, Kevin, you just asked was exactly right, and just like every other initiative that you serve on for the county, those are the things we could be asking and focusing on. And I'm not going to belabor this, and I want to, provide the respect and dignity that is appropriate, but I just want to take a brief moment to pause as a group here and recognize the leadership of Chief Duffy, who has recently gone through something absolutely unimaginable for his family. So please just join me in a brief moment of silence, if you would. Okay, thank you. And Chief, thank you so much for being here. It means the world to the county. Greatly appreciate it. So quick question for Emma and for the Aurora Navigation Campus. I think that line of questioning was correct. And, I think from a county perspective, for the last several years, we have been watching the Springs Rescue Mission and have taken tours, met with retired Commander Jack Briggs. I think we also really believe in that model and feel like it's a great opportunity for us to replicate and have some success. 2 things that I think are important. One is, are you going to have a program within the Regional Navigation Campus that provides positive reinforcement for individuals that are doing well in the program? I know in the Springs Rescue Mission, Jack always said that, look, if you can pass a sobriety threshold, then you can get, an extra couple of nights or a towel or, additional snacks or, there's benefits associated with making improvement along the way, whether it's sobriety, you know, filling out a job application, getting some of your paperwork done. I mean, it seems like basic things to all of us, but those are, I think, the entry points to self-reliance for those that are unhoused. Are there going to be some of those elements at the Regional Navigation Campus?
Absolutely, great question. So that tier system that I talked about earlier, let me go back to it. So that is that model that you're talking about. So getting into step 2, you will have to engage in services. You will have to be doing things to move into that. It's not just going to be, well, I've been here for a couple weeks, I get to move in there now, right? No, you have to be working with case managers. You have to be showing that you are working on things, you are working towards housing. So that's the shortest model. And then the next step into step 3 is a little bit more of what you're talking about, probably, where yeah, you've worked really hard. You are filling out those job applications. Maybe you're working in this workforce program, and you're just working towards that housing and saving up some money to get in there. So yes, that's just one way we're going to be doing it, and then there may be some other options that will be happening. I know our future operator really also loves the Colorado Springs model as well, so I think they will be looking to do some similar things to what you're talking about. I can't say with certainty of what any of those would be at this point, since we don't have them on and we haven't finalized all of that yet, but yes, in short, that will be happening.
Well, thank you for that. And then the other question I had was related to the external perimeter and reintegration. So I know at the Springs Rescue Mission, there's a real challenge with the camping. And I know you touched on this briefly, but is there a camping ban in city of Aurora? And how will that be addressed in the perimeter surrounding the navigation campus? And then the related question is when people leave the facility, is there a reintegration component, that provides maybe, because I know you mentioned, getting people to housing. I agree that's deeply important, but, ongoing case management and wraparound services to ensure, really smooth reintegration, at least from our perspective, might be most effective.
Yes to both of those. Aurora does have a camping ordinance that makes it illegal to camp on public property. It's also not legal to camp on private property either, so that would be more of a PD or code enforcement issue if that were to happen. And we know Denver also has something in place for that. So I don't see that as being too big of a concern, because we definitely don't want folks camping around this site. The sites in Aurora, when this does happen where we have shelter, we take care of that fairly swiftly. We have a pretty small team right now that does the camp abatements, but we can scale up as needed. And we work really closely with our police department on that. And as far as reintegration, yes, again, this is something our future operator believes strongly in, is following folks after they've moved out and helping them, and not just saying, hey, you got your housing, good luck. They want to be there for them and be supportive for I think they're talking about up to a year afterwards, and just supporting those folks as they move into housing. We also got some housing vouchers, state housing vouchers from DOLA as part of this, the funding we received to purchase this facility, and those come with ongoing case management as well. So I completely agree, and I think so does our council, that you can't just put folks in a house and leave them alone. Some folks will be able to just move on and move out and be fine on their own, but you need to provide some kind of additional assistance in case they're needing that, so that they're not falling back into homelessness.
Well, thank you for that, and huge thanks to Bob for being online. And please give our best from Douglas County to Mayor Mike Kaufman and the City of Aurora. We're really honored to be partners.
Will do.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mike, you had some additional questions?
Yeah, Mike Polhemus, The Rock. Just quickly, first off, Emma, thank you for this, and thank you for coming down. This is amazing just to see what you guys are doing there. You had mentioned no families. And I just wanted to just clarify that or understand that. Is there a minimum age? And I guess how are you addressing maybe those with single moms with children or something? Is there another facility that you have or?
Great question. So the minimum age would be 18 years for this facility. Best practice is really to not have families and singles in the same facility. So we didn't want to continue that. What we currently have in Aurora is Comitas Crisis Center, and it is a mixture of families and singles, and it's not the best model. We didn't want to replicate that again. And that being said, because Comitas exists, they already serve families. So when we open the navigation campus, they will most likely switch to only serving families, which will provide additional family sheltering. And in addition to that, we have the Family Tree Goals program in Aurora that serves families as well. So between those two, according to our point in time count, that's enough beds to serve the folks, the families experiencing homelessness in Aurora. That being said, family sheltering would be our next thing that we'd be focused on. Our council has also raised that concern, and they really care about families as well, and so do we. This is just one very big project, and it'd be a little hard for us to focus on two at a time. So we're tackling this, and then we'll focus on families.
Thank you. That's great. The only other thing I had was we had a presentation here. I don't know if it was the last time or the time before. I can't remember, but Paul Egan with Bridge House, Ready to Work. Have you worked with them at all? Okay. I just going and seeing their operations. I know they're a smaller operation, but I might have some good kind of some methods that you could take hold of and not reinvent the wheel on some of those things. So, but great work and all you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thanks. Absolutely. And I'll just say we do work with Ready to Work regularly. We fund them. They're one of our homeless services providers that we fund. I actually was in a meeting with Paul yesterday, and I know our mayor really likes their model as well. So yeah, I think it's very likely that they'll have some kind of role in our facility.
Thank you. Thank you. We do need to move on to our next topic, but I did want to make mention, since Mike, you brought up, what are the alternatives for people who are families in that situation, and Emma mentioned that goals was one of those options for Aurora. That is also something that we're working on developing for Douglas County in partnership with Family Tree, and Dante Latson is the executive director for Family Tree. I wonder, Dante, if you want to say a few things since you're here related to goals, and sure, might as well. But I need you to go to a mic. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So our GOALS program, GOALS stands for Generational Opportunities to Achieve Long-Term Success. It is located in southeast Aurora. We have about 15 rooms for families, so it's considered non-congregate since they're separate rooms. Sometimes these are individual rooms, sometimes they're rooms for larger families. If they're single individuals with one child and it works out, then we will sometimes put families together. We operate from a 2-gen model and that's also interchangeable with multi-generational. So it can, whatever your family is defined as, whether it's 3 generations or what have you, we know it's important for families to stay together so that they can get what they need. The program is anywhere from 4 to 9 months. And again, we're providing these services to families. We also use what's called Family Voice. So we have weekly meetings where our clients really get together and they let us know what the needs are. So that way it's not just coming from us. And a really good example of something positive that's come as a result of this, the Family Voice, is that many of the clients, they voiced that while they understood that before they could achieve some level of stability, they needed to be employed. Well, if you have children, how do you manage that? I mean, we know that it's not so much about your resources, but it's difficult to find really good quality care. And so as a result of that, we were able to work something out with Creative Options. They are an early childhood education provider, and they are on site providing those services. And for the families at Goals, they receive first dibs. And to me, what's really cool about that is that when you think about folks who are in poverty or low income, you typically think just being able to get some level of care for their kids are happy enough about it. But with Creative Options, they're well versed in what they do, and it is one of the only 4-star ECE centers in the area. So I think it's the only 4-star ECE in the area. So something else that I really appreciate about Creative Options is that while we opened up last summer, they have been careful and methodical in how they scale up. They have used a phased approach, very similar to what Emma talked about. And I think something that we can all relate to, it kind of comes down to the employee base that you have. And if you think about it as a parent, you want to make sure that your kids are getting the absolute best. So they'll bring folks on. They do not go directly into the classrooms. What happens is that they have to spend several weeks in training mode to go through that orientation, to get adequately onboarded, to ensure that once they begin providing those services, that as parents, you feel very confident about that. One of the challenges that we have right now, and we're looking at some ways to negotiate it, is that, again, with the slower start, the hours are not extended at this point. So what it does mean for our clients is that they have to pick their children up by 4 o'clock. The ultimate goal is to be able to extend that to about 6 or 6:30, and that's more convenient for our families. But we are excited about it. We are working with the Center for Policy and Research, and one of the outcomes that I'll just briefly mention with you is that 89% of the clients who are exiting from the program, they exit to safe and stable housing. And that's quite significant when you look at some of the others from some of the others in this area. I don't know if there are specific questions about goals, and I'll try my best to answer them. Okay.
Dante, I so appreciate you jumping in to give a little bit of a description about that for us. I know we're getting closer on the Douglas County, accessibility and the rooms that will be available. So we'll be hoping to invite you back to talk a little bit more about what that looks like. And I definitely want to put a plug in because I know the goal is to open by before the beginning of the next school year starting. Mm-hmm. So there are up to 10 rooms that are going to be part of this new building that is being renovated with the funds that were coming through our representative earmark dollars. And so those are opportunities actually for our faith-based. We were going to reach out with our faith-based partners and see if there is an interest in adopting a room and, kind of sprucing it up and putting all those things in there that make it a homey feeling, right? Nice sheets and artwork and all of those different things. So we do want to make that opportunity available to our faith-based partners. And I wanted to make that mention because we are going to be talking about that soon. So thank you, Dante.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Family Tree is happy to be supportive and to partner with Douglas County. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, well, wonderful. Emma, thank you so much for your presentation. Obviously, a lot of interest, and we're all very excited to hear what's happening. And we will keep everybody up to date and informed as things move along. So thank you for that. And we want to move on to Stephen Dodrell, who's our Community Programs Administrator. And he is going to talk to us about another piece of that continuum that a lot of our partners in the room here have been working on putting together and building with Stephen. So take it away, homeless prevention.
All right. And I will, I know we're close on time, so I'll keep it tight. But good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here, Stephen Dodrell with our Community Development Department. So at the end of 2023, staff submitted an emergency services grant application requesting funds for homeless diversion and prevention services. The county was awarded $50,000 with a $25,000 match for a total project budget of $75,000. This ESG award is funded through revenue generated from Proposition 123. The Douglas County Homelessness Initiative established a work group to provide input on the implementation of a homeless prevention pilot program using these funds. Regular participants in this work group have included the Douglas County Housing Partnership, the Crisis Center, Manor Resource Center, Catholic Charities, CASA, AD Works, Douglas County Human Services, DCSO Reintegration Program, the CARE Compact, and the HEART team. So a really great group assembled. With this pilot program, we hope to assist 5 to 7 households at risk of homelessness and demonstrate an effective program and analyze the outcomes to improve any future programs that we implement. To be eligible for these homeless prevention services, a resident must be 30% AMI and at risk of homelessness, meaning that they have been notified that their housing will be terminated within 21 days. They could also be fleeing domestic violence situations. Residents cannot already be technically homeless as defined by HUD. The service timeframe for the proposed work group is 9 months with an extension of up to 12 months. Again, the target population for homeless prevention are residents at risk of homeless or at risk of homeless instability who without assistance may need to rely on shelter services and those displaced from housing due to domestic violence. All participants need to be legally present. Given the time frame and services, the work group has proposed that we focus on households with moderate barriers as identified by the Colorado Family Support Assessment so that we are able to achieve the desired stable housing outcome within the given time frame. It is our hope that the level of intervention provided by this program matches the client need. The pilot program will provide limited rental assistance to help residents avoid homelessness while participants engage in case management, benefit enrollment, career development, domestic violence, and mental health services made possible through our wonderful community partners. We believe that through wraparound case management and the provision of the listed services, we can help residents achieve long-term stable housing. We anticipate that this pilot program will launch in June. And I know that was kind of a whirlwind. So with that, I am available if there are any questions, but I also want to be respectful of the time we have for this meeting as well. So thank you.
Stephen.
Yeah.
And I just want to put in a very big kudos plug for Stephen and the whole team, the diversion and prevention team that has been working on this. A lot of wonderful work has gone into this, and I really think is setting that foundation for it is a pilot program, and it is, probably going to be 5 to 7 families that we're able to help, but it's a start. It gives us that foundation, and it is something that we can build off of. So we will certainly be looking for additional funds to support that. And, I think if you build it, they come. So I'm my fingers are crossed for funding. So I think there will be more that we can do along these lines. Does anybody have any questions for Stephen? I guess that means you're doing a great job.
Hey, great. I'll take it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we are going to go real quickly to Tiffany Marcito for a quick heart update for us, and I will get you back online.
All right. Thank you, Jen. I do know that our team is very excited for the Aurora Navigation Campus, so thank you, Emma, for that presentation. That was great. I do have some slides.
I'm getting there, sorry. I can't see.
Well, while you're pulling that up, Jen, we had
the success story.
The success story for last month is we had about 3 heart navigators working all collaboratively with this individual out of Highlands Ranch. It was a referral from the Highlands Ranch Library, and he was struggling with mental health challenges, wanted to reconnect with his supports back in Arizona, but had some legal obligations with the court here in Douglas that he needed to resolve prior to leaving. The Heart was able to provide 3 hotel vouchers to kind of bridge that gap for this individual. Collaborated with multiple faith-based organizations for food boxes, clothing, a few additional hotel vouchers. Once he received notice from the court that he could appear telephonically for his ongoing case, we were able to reach out to another faith-based organization to provide a bus ticket back to Arizona, which was confirmed by one of our navigators that he was able to successfully connect back with his support system there. So that was a huge success with all of our navigators working together to get this individual to a safe spot where he had some supportive help. We had 203 call types last month. Half of them were proactive street outreach that our navigators were doing in the communities, going around businesses, parks, trails, so on and so forth. 23% of those were from law enforcement, 12% citizen calls, 5% community partners, and 9% were public referral forms that individuals filled out on our referral form online. Next slide. Of those call types, the outcomes are listed here. In blue, this is what we saw for April. We had 3 that were just given general information about shelters in the area, any services that they were in need of, but didn't want to give information or enroll in Heart at this time. 52 people were contacted by Heart. 18 were found not to be from Douglas County, and 9 were not homeless. 13 refused services from Heart. 3 had law enforcement action, so a criminal charge or a summons or arrested on a warrant. And then the navigators found 9 encampments that have been since cleaned up since then. Next slide. Of those who interacted with Heart, we had 7 that were given housing support from our navigators. 47 individuals were given hotel vouchers to help bridge the gap until we could get them to a safe location that had more stability. 9 were given transportation assistance, and 3 were referred to a shelter of their choosing and provided transportation to that said shelter. And of the call types that we received last month, this slide shows where those calls were coming from. 37% of those were from the Highlands Ranch area, 23% Parker, 22 Castle Rock, 9% Lone Tree, 5% Castle Pines, and then 1% in Inglewood and other regions in Douglas County. So that is all I have for last month.
Okay.
Any questions from the group?
Chief?
I don't really have a question. I just want to make a comment that a lot of people don't pick up on, but that slide where Tiffany showed that her teams, that 51% of all of our homeless contacts were done because of proactive engagement on the Heart teams, whereas only 23% were dispatch calls. That's a monumental statistic to talk about. What that shows us is that our Heart teams are out in the field. They're not just sitting around waiting for a call to come in. They're not sitting around waiting for the citizens to call. They're out there proactively working with the homeless. So that is probably the most impressive stat that I saw. So congratulations on that. It shows that you guys are working really, really hard.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm trying not to interrupt, but boy, not doing well. I know we have at least one member update for the executive committee, Mike Wade with Douglas County Community Foundation.
Thank you very much, Jen. Very, very exciting news for everybody. It's just kind of a reminder. We have the fund for the Douglas Has Heart Fund. Both donations come in organically through our website, and then also from anyone who sees the street signs that are out that says handouts don't help, they can go to the address that's on there, which is douglasHasHeart.org, and make a donation into this fund. The fund is 100% allocated to the service providers in Douglas County that help with homelessness. So the very exciting news is that after last month's meeting, we had a larger donor come in and drop some funds into it. And so we have now hit the next benchmark to make a distribution next month, the end of the quarter, which will be to the Parker Task Force. So that means since this program has started, I have to put my glasses on because now I'm old and I can't read little print. Almost $11,000 has been raised from folks making donations into this program. Those donations have ranged from as small as $10 to as large as $1,000. So next month's meeting, we'll have the nice fake check to hand out along with the real check behind it and celebrate everyone's successes. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Wonderful news. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We're always happy to hear how that fund is doing. And I think that is just really indicative of the generosity in our community. And I think the good job doing outreach that Hart and other executive committee members and all the members of this homeless initiative have been doing to kind of help us spread the word. So keep doing that. That's excellent news. We are able to support our nonprofits when we do that, and they are really providing a lot of support for those who are unsheltered in our community. Mayor Gray?
Thank you, Jennifer. Real quick, I just wanted to mention at the last town council meeting, town council directed staff, specifically Mike Hyman, to work with Jeff Garcia, specifically with Douglas County, as far as creating a possible IGA with the unplanned bus drop-off as well. So just in conjunction with that. And then we also wanted to come alongside with a support of the lawsuit as well. So just want to make sure you guys knew that. So thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for that. That's great news. I'm so happy to hear that. Any other executive committee member updates for us today? Okay. I understand we do not have anyone signed up on the public comment list at this point, but I do want to open that up. Is there anyone in the room that would like to provide public comment? Okay, seeing none. I also understand no online public comments at this point. So we will go ahead and move on to closing comments. Really, I mean, all I can say is a tremendous amount of work is being done. I hope that it's evident to everyone that through especially the two presentations that we brought today, that we are working on closing those gaps in services and, you know, putting a broader amount of services to that continuum that we've talked about. So I'm personally very happy to see that, and I see some smiling faces and nodding heads. So I'm going to take that as we're all happy to see that moving along. Dan, do you have any other closing comments? Okay, well, with that, we will give you a whole whopping 6 minutes back of your time. Thank you. Have a good day.